been a week since the North Line update, and just about a week since we finished renovations on the tunnels to Stellamontis, but it's been a busy week at that for Raiders and for Embark and the team working on Arc Raiders. While we've had some cool stats pile up about our experiences, Embark has been adjusting the game, touching on a few sore spots, and making adjustments where needed. Today we're running down what you need to know, so drop your thoughts, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Arc Raiders content as we gear up for even more coming. Love having the community, but for now, let's get into it. So, some interesting trivia up front here in the last week or so, a little less since this was released yesterday. Raiders have made over 25 million visits to Stellamontis. The highest resource total donated by a single Raider was 24,375 resources, which is crazy. 2,270,576 Raiders were knocked down by the Shredder. 37,218 Raiders downed themselves with a new deadline, 26,923 Matriarchs were eliminated, and 117 Raiders somehow downed themselves with volcanic rocks. I also got to agree with Embark on the wording of that last one there. How are we downing ourselves with volcanic rocks in that type of abundance? But either way, cool stats to see to the breaking new ground event and the start here of that. Of course, we still have a couple more weeks to go for this to all be tracked, so be curious to see what these numbers are by the very end. I need to get my crew on to take on the Matriarch myself, but I've personally loved everything we've seen since the update began as is. But the work isn't done, as they would say, both for the players and for the team themselves. Today we got an update for Arc Raiders, which changed several key and important factors to the gameplay experience. Perhaps the biggest change comes to your Raider Den. Now you can completely duck out your Raider Den, not just what was, I think, showcasing 3 or something like that stored before on your shelf. If you have dozens, maybe hundreds, they'll be in your Raider Den now. Okay, so maybe that wasn't the biggest change of the update, but a whimsical change that doesn't hurt anybody that is pretty nice to see. I had seen quite a few comments about that, posts on Reddit and elsewhere, that like, with that being such a small item in game, people wanted to see a little bit more of that. But let's talk about actual core changes to the experience now. Talking balancing, probably the real biggest change to this update was the Venator. Complete with a dev note and all, it said the fully upgraded Venator has been overperforming recently, capable of outgunning full squads using close range weapons. We're retuning the fire rate gained from upgrades to pull down the pacing a bit, while still keeping its damage and accuracy intact. This should encourage players to take some more time with their shots rather than mag dumping the first poor soul they encounter. The community also rightfully pointed out that the weight of the Venator was inconsistent with the weights of the other pistols, so we've corrected that as well. So the changes they made were they reduced the fire rate gained from upgrades from 22, 44, and 60% now to 13, 26, and 40%, while also increasing that weight from 2 to 5. So that is a big change to the weapon that maybe isn't necessarily considered when thinking about how you to retool this. It's not completely gutting the weapon, like it's not just something that is now completely useless. If you find a Venator, you're not going to want to pick it up, but it is making something you have to be a bit more mindful of now in those areas. Keeping it on your person will weigh you down a little bit more. Taking one from a dead enemy and putting it in your stash will be something that, again, might be weighing you down a little more. And how quickly you can engage with enemies because of that is something you have to consider. The weapon is still incredibly powerful and accurate, but that fire rate difference is a substantial drop that seemingly at every single upgrade phase here of this, you'll end up noticing that little difference from pre and post patch. So you'll definitely feel that. Other things that did get adjusted in terms of balancing, the deadline saw some adjustments to its buy and sell values and crafting. The buy values went from 8,100 to 15,000 coins to end up buying one, where a sell value is mimicking that price increase by offering 5,000 coins now instead of 3,000 before. Crafting these beforehand, it only took 2 explosive compound and 1 synthesized fuel. Now it's going to take 3 explosive compounds and 2 arc circuitry. So somewhat changing the components here with that fundamentally, but also making it a little bit more expensive as well. And finally, the deadline trader stock was changed from 3 down to only 1 daily. The power cells, you can now have a different cell value where you get 270 coins instead of 640 now. Launcher ammo was adjusted in buy and sell value while also offering up a difference in the crafting available. The buy value, the old you could end up getting for 6,000 coins, 10 launcher ammo. Now it's 4,500 coins for just 6 launcher ammo. So while at first glance, if you're just going off of the amount, it's cheaper, it's not actually working out in your favor entirely. You're actually paying 150 coins more per each individual rocket, so a bit more expensive in that regard. Your sell value is changing from 200 to 250, and crafting before for 6 launcher ammo, you needed 4 metal parts and 1 explosive compound. Now you need 1 arc motion core and 2 crude explosives for 6 launcher ammo. But launcher ammo is now craftable in the workbench without needing a blueprint, so that's nice. Explosive damage as a whole was something that was balanced a little bit further with this update, again coming along with a dev note for this, where they said, we noticed the explosives dealt damage to more parts at once than intended, allowing weapons like the Hull Cracker to kill larger drones too quickly. We've adjusted explosive damage to make it more consistent across the board, and we've rebalanced the damage of the Hull Cracker to account for that change. This will require Hull Cracker shots to need a bit more precision while still dealing good damage to the targeted spot, with specifics including rebalancing explosives against arc for more consistent experiences, explosions on smaller enemies like turrets being largely unaffected, but explosives on larger sized enemies like the Bastion will typically deal a bit less damage. So I'm curious to see how this applies to things across the board here. Like, yes, they gave the examples of the turrets and the Bastions, but what's this mean for things like the Queens or the Matriarchs out there that will potentially increase the duration of those fights to a noticeably longer degree if it is a noticeable adjustment like that? I'm just curious, like, if there's an end point to that leaves this dev note a little ambiguous, kind of. But anyways, beyond that, we saw additional content fixes for things like Arc, where they fixed the bug where the Arc would call in reinforcements from outside the map. The Shredder was adjusted after its first week in the wild here, where it will now detect and move more reliably towards lure grenades. Shredder movement and handling updates saw slightly reduced turn speed with improved braking, stiffer suspension, and more consistent reactions to impacts for steadier behavior in combat, and they fixed the navigation issue that would prevent it from getting stuck on corners when moving towards the players. Movement as a whole saw improvements to the ground detection for better handling on steep surfaces, reducing erratic movements when traversing angled terrain. Weapons of the Aphelion saw a fixed issue where the tracers could become excessively bright at a distance and reduce the visibility for the player being shot at, but it also increased the blueprint drop rate for this. So nice to see that you have the ability to find those a bit easier now. And the Stitcher also saw some adjustments where it corrected player-facing stats for the weapon, showcasing incorrect scaling beforehand of the reload time across upgrade levels. Audio adjustments were made where they reduced the volume attenuation for explosive tinnitus and concussion effects to improve clarity. That was something that, while I think is a nice feature to have for the immersion of being next to an explosion of such a magnitude that would cause that, it was something that it did play on for quite a bit. And then we saw some adjustments to maps, among other things, where things like barricades can no longer be placed overlapping your character, so that preventing now clipping through walls and accessing locked rooms that otherwise you wouldn't be able to get to. And then on screen you can check out the specific issues that were kind of smaller for the most part, depending on what map you were queuing into. Beyond that, we saw some changes that target some of the stability of the game depending on specific hardware you're using. But other than that, that is the update in a nutshell. So 1 week after clearing the tunnels, making our way to Stella Montis, a lot has been discovered, but still a lot more on deck for Arc Raiders and the gameplay experience at large. But that's going to wrap it up. I want to fill you guys in here on this newest update, the changes that came along with it, and then your thoughts down below. Do you like these changes made? Think they could have gone a little further? Are you looking forward to the next update and whatever that may hold? Let me know. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it, and make sure to subscribe for more Arc Raiders and other FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community. For now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.